Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, let's get to the big stories of the week, maybe a little political talk, but first, it's National Assisted Living Week. Let's get to it.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, welcome back to the show. I'm going to read a couple of numbers. How about this? In the state of Pennsylvania, 65 up, age I'm talking about, grew 13.5% in this decade, 2.2 million. I'll use the words senior citizens. Now the 65 plus are 17.4% of the state's population. What a great time to talk about National Assisted Living Week. Joining me to chat about that is Russ McDaid. He's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, and Leslie Ray with 5-Star Senior Living. I got that right, didn't I? 5-Star Senior Living. All right. The population, senior population is growing. Let's talk about what does it mean when you get to be, the planning, you want to put somebody in assisted living, you've got the option of personal care. It all gets complicated. Yeah. And you've been doing this. You're the pro. What weigh in on it?
Yeah. Well, what we try to tell families is, be prepared and don't fear what you think is going to happen. Because that's the biggest thing about aging is we don't know where anybody's going now. Those numbers that you just read, they weren't the same numbers 10 years ago. And our industry has evolved. So we say to people, see what's in your area. Go do your research now, not when you need it, because you may not ever need it, and we're okay with that. Assisted living is just one of the options. There's a lot of options. We have a huge surge in home care options now. Who doesn't want to stay at home? These would be agencies that you would bring into your home. Who doesn't want to stay in their home longer?
So you'd bring people in to do certain activities and functions for you.
Help you if you, whatever need you have. But what need you have now may not be the need that you have in 2 years. So know your options, think about where you would go, and go visit now. We really invite people to come into our buildings. Yeah. Do it now, not when you're in a crisis, because it's the worst time to make a decision.
That's a great point. Is there pressure on the facilities that you represent? I mean, given the growth of senior citizens, is this becoming a serious problem?
On all sides of the issue, Terry. On the access to services, and we used to call it a continuum of care. Right. We try not to do that anymore because it's not. You might never need that nursing facility or assisted living level. You may be able to get some services in your home and then have that end-of-life experience in your home. Yeah. When you need that care, we need to have enough direct caregivers available to provide it, which Leslie and others who are in the space struggle mightily with each and every day, making sure that they have the right people in the right place at the right time to meet the needs of their residents.
You also make the point that there should be visits to assisted living facilities, and that you should interview and be sure when you're doing personal home care. Explain that.
How does that work?
Yeah, good way to put it. How does it work?
What we think it is eliminating the fear. And what the fear comes from is the unknown. The unknown comes from, where am I supposed to go? And you're supposed to have that answer. I don't know, I don't have that answer with my teenage kids, nor my mother, nor my grandmother. So we say go into an assisted living. It's just one of the options. Right. And I think one of the things about the assisted living is, whenever your needs start to change for your parents or your aging elderly, you need to find a place. They no longer can stay at home. That doesn't mean that assisted living can't be a home-like environment. So go search out what's important to you. It could be location. It could be a price, because there are price differences. Yeah. It could be whatever it is. But know what those are now so you can make good decisions, not based off of need.
All right, we're going to run to a break, but before we do, this is an extremely important decision, and it needs to be made in the right way. This can either work out great, or it can, be the opposite, correct?
That's right. And you got to shop in advance. I mean, that's the number one thing that we tell people. Do your homework, shop in advance. There is no harm when you're still very independent and don't need care. to go visit an assisted living residence or a nursing facility, see what they're like, and start to scope out what the right choice might be for you.
All right. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about lawsuit abuse, and I also want to get into what is a National Assisted Living Week. Maybe we should have started with that, but we've got to a very, very important topic. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association and Partners for Public Education, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back. It's National Assisted Living Week, and Russ McDaid is going to explain that now. What's the significance of that?
It's been in existence for around 25 years.
Okay.
And it's designed to celebrate the work that our assisted living providers do, and more importantly, the robust lives that individuals who've chosen assisted living as the place where they're going to live can lead. Mm-hmm. And I'm thrilled to be able to bring with me today Leslie Ray, the chair of our board of directors that focuses on these issues at the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, to give us the first-hand look at the wonderful attributes of assisted living.
Yeah. You know, before we ended the last segment, you wanted to say something about the relevance of this decision. I can't think of a more important decision that you're going to make, and it's mostly the kids and the relatives that make the decision for the parent. Do I got that right?
Yeah. What we say to them is, don't fear that it's the last decision you'll ever make. You know, feel confident that it's the right decision you've made with the information in front of you. But I'll tell you, Terry, a National Assisted Living Week is one of those celebrations because something we hear all the time is, I should have done this sooner.
Yeah, oh, great point.
Because of the fear of the unknown, and I'm leaving a house, who wants to do that? But when they get there, our residents meet new friends. Independence comes back. They have they're so active.
I'll tell you, at the break, I was saying I know a number of people who are in facilities. There's a reluctance, and there is a little bit of a fear. And then once they're there, you couldn't pry them out with a crowbar. I mean, they just won't leave, right?
That's right. That's right. That's the focal point of their social life. They're doing things, frankly, I've got a number of folks who have told me they're doing things that they may not have done. Yeah. Particularly someone who lost a spouse for a decade.
And I can tell you a quick story. We had a lady that she was 92 years old. Her husband passed away about 22 years ago. They were motorcycle riders. She used to tell me that her mother did not approve of her lifestyle.
No motorcycles.
No, she didn't want to be riding the motorcycles with that man. Well, the theme of National Assisted Living Week is capture the moment. So something we did in 5 Stars, we said, go out and survey what moment would you like to capture. She wanted to ride a motorcycle.
Oh my gosh.
We had 20 lovely a group came, 20 lovely men and women came. We got her on there, we put her up there, her legs weren't working as much as they could. She rode all through rolling hills over in the Pittsburgh area.
Oh my.
Still talks about it. It happened about 3 weeks ago.
That's great.
I got chill bumps. It's one of the highlights.
Great.
Love talking to this lady.
That is wonderful. Before I let you go, there's some legislation that's been in the House dealing with lawsuit abuse reform that your organization has been particularly pushing for. First of all, what is it?
Yeah, when we were last here, we talked about our effort to bring a cap on punitive damages to right size and level the playing field in Pennsylvania's lawsuit climate. We've mentioned the lawsuit abuse that goes on, the fact that plaintiffs' lawyers are coming from out of state, placing ads, putting TV infomercials on, trying to prey on the fear at a difficult time in people's lives. Right. That bill got a fair hearing at the end of the summer session, And we learned that we're a couple votes short, unfortunately. But I want everybody to understand what that meant.
Okay.
That was not a victory for Pennsylvania seniors or their caregivers or their taxpayers. It set them back. It was a good day for predatory out-of-state trial lawyers who are trying to make hay off of our tax dollars. We're going to be back at it when the legislature returns, because we know that the cause is right, and we know that it's the most important issue facing this sector right now.
Well, look, I want to thank you for coming in. A wonderful update, and I love the stories. We'll have to have you back. You can tell us some more.
Be glad to come back anytime.
All right, big stories of the week. You know, there's a governor's race, there's a Senate race, there's congressional races in 18 congressional districts. We're going to talk to a couple of great reporters who are going to fill us in.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
All right, welcome back to the program. Well, joining me for the big stories of the week, Mike Straub, WGAL-News 8. He's the Capitol Hill reporter, and John Micek. He's the opinion page editor of the Harrisburg Patriot News PennLive, both great reporters. I always joke with John and say he's an editor now, but he's been a reporter and will always be a reporter. I always have fun with you on that.
It's a disease.
For which there's no known cure.
I can't shake it.
The news doesn't stop. So.
Yeah, that's true. All right, John, let's start with you.
Yes.
The governor's race. Do we really have a race?
Well, I think if you ask Governor Wolf and Scott Wagner, his Republican challenger, they will tell you yes.
Okay.
And you know, Mike and I were talking about this before we went on air. It's been remarkably low profile,
isn't it,
Terry? And here we are going into the post-Labor Day traditional start. But you know, Wolf and Wagner have been out there for weeks, pummeling each other on social media, in email blasts to reporters. But I don't, and I think you're right about this. I don't think there's been the public profile, at least so far, that you would expect of a major statewide race.
Now, I'm being objective about this. As you know, there's been a red wave 2010. Republicans dominated everything. It looks like there's a blue wave this year. Maybe not a big blue wave, but I call it a light blue wave. Does the fact that it looks like this is going to be a good year for Democrats, you think that's playing a role?
Well, I mean, you've got two strong candidates at the top of the ticket in Tom Wolf and Bob Casey. In your poll, both out to double-digit leads. The real clear averages both have them at double digits. I mean, there are significant headwinds for Republican candidates, I think, up and down the ballot this year. Perhaps more so for Congressman Lou Barletta, who is Bob Casey's Republican challenger. Scott Wagner is let's face it, he's a formidable campaigner. He is tenacious, and he's going to make Governor Wolf break a sweat. But you know, there are any number of variables that are stacked against Republicans this year. You
know what's fascinating? There's been a big debate about the debates. Typically, there's been at least three. One in the east, one in the west, and one here in south central Pennsylvania, or in central Pennsylvania, I'll say. Mike, this year there's only one. Governor Wolf has a big lead, and that even hasn't caught on with anybody, has it?
Yeah, I don't know if he's taken that much heat for not debating. We were discussing beforehand that there was a Corbett-Wolf debate going back to the first race, where when it ended, the two of them shook hands, and Corbett, they thanked each other, and Tom Wolf said something to the effect of, and I'm just going to paraphrase, I don't have it in front of me, he said something to the effect of, "Oh, I appreciate you taking part in this. This is very important to the democratic process, you know, to participate in debates." Now here we are 4 years later, and there's one debate, and sort of feels we were overwhelmed with debates in the spring between the Republican challengers. We saw a new debate every couple of days. So you're right, only one debate, and it's interesting. I think I can understand where both campaigns are coming from. It's not necessarily the strong suit of maybe either of them to be forced onto a stage on live television and be forced to answer.
If you have a lead, why would you?
I mean, that's the thing. It is in some way the incumbent's prerogative. You want to minimize your exposure, particularly if you're out to a significant lead, so you don't do anything that might eat into that. And Terry, we are also now in this social media age where every utterance gets parsed and sliced and diced into a Twitter video or a YouTube video. And to the extent that you can sort of shelter yourself from that, you're going to do that.
Right.
And I honestly don't know how worked up voters get about debates. I think it's something that you and we three at this table, and certainly we've taken Governor Wolf to task for that in PennLive in the editorial pages. But I think it is a disservice. I think the voters deserve to see these guys out there at least, more than once.
Absolutely. All right, U.S. Senate race. Senator Casey is seeking his third term. His opponent's Lou Barletta, who's the current congressman up in Hazleton. Well, he lives in Hazleton, up in the northeastern part of the state. Again, Senator Casey, like Governor Wolf, in the average of the polls, has a double digit. And we have Trump. Trump's not on the ballot, but he's in the campaign, right?
Right. Well, Lou Barletta was one of the earliest Trump supporters on Capitol Hill, one of the first members of Congress to put, put his efforts behind now President Trump when he was still a candidate when the field was 11, 12 deep at that point.
Right.
So he comes in with that, I've been ahead of this movement for a long time, and then some people in Washington say he was Trump before Trump. When you look at his policies, even as mayor of Hazleton, things he was doing in those days in terms of immigration policies he was pushing for as a mayor. So he comes in as this very strong pro-Trump track record. In the same time, though, is he getting that message across to voters right now? I know I'm stuck in my TV bubble, but we don't air any Lou Barletta commercials that I'm aware of yet. We don't have any Bob Casey commercials either. The two of them have only agreed to 2 debates.
Well, that's one more than we're seeing.
It's true. And at the same time, Wagner will say he agreed to something like 11 debates. Anybody who asked, he said he would do it. Barletta said 4. And they only have 2. So Barletta is kind of picking his way across the state. He did a bus tour in some capacity, but again, not a lot of buzz. A lot of people caught on with it. So I think his campaign is probably scratching the heads.
Wagner once won in 67. Didn't he offer debate in all 67?
Which is cruel and unusual punishment. But I mean, what's interesting to me, Terry, is that you had both Vice President Pence in Philadelphia for Mr. Barletta, and then the president in Wilkes-Barre back on August 2nd. And you look at your numbers from your poll last week, and no movement in any significant way. We were all asking ourselves, is Lou Barletta going to get a Trump bump out of a presidential visit? And the answer categorically is no. I mean, it's that to me is more telling than anything else.
And we don't have a major Casey event yet, except that I did read yesterday former President Obama is going to campaign for him in Philadelphia coming up.
No surprise there. All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the congressional races, but I also, what a topic, satellite casinos. We'll see if we get to that.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Welcome back. I'm talking to Mike Straub and John Micek, top reporters in the state. All right, John Micek, 18 congressional seats in Pennsylvania. They're all up for, members of Congress either up for re-election, but at any rate, there's congressional contest in 18 districts. Tell me about, is there any that you're following that you think the viewers ought to be aware of?
I mean, there's a couple of really extraordinary races. Terry, the 17th district in Western Pennsylvania, PA. The all-incumbent steel cage winner-take-all matchup between Democratic U.S. Rep. Connor Lamb, who won that special election back in March, and Republican incumbent Keith Rothfuss, who won election in 2012. Another early Trump Republican, a Trump supporter. That race that district was redrawn in the new Supreme Court map from going to a plus 20 Trump district to like a plus 2.5 Trump district now.
Either way, right?
There's a roll call ranking out this morning, Thursday, as we're taping this, has Mr. Rothfuss on their second most vulnerable of 10 House incumbents. Story last week, there are 3 Republican House incumbents who are at risk of having funds cut off as the NRCC reallocates resources. Mr. Rothfuss is among them. I was out there a couple of weeks ago talking to folks. Connor Lamb running exceptionally strong, and that is a district that could well flip. And what's important about that is that's Beaver County, Terry. That's Beaver County, Washington County,
it's
an area that went really, really strongly for Donald Trump in 2016.
Yeah, absolutely.
If Democrats flip that seat, you have some sentiment about what the White House may face in 2020. I think that's a bellwether race. Yeah. And you're right. We have 18 districts that are up for grabs. Nate Silver at 538 has them going 9-9 on Democratic takeovers. Yeah. 23 seats needed to flip. At least 5 of those seats come through Pennsylvania.
And Pennsylvania is in the top 5 states among all 50 in terms of whether or not the Democrats can pick up the 23 seats.
Correct.
What, you following any?
Well, the one I'm most interested here in our own neck of the woods is that new 10th district. Incumbent Scott Perry, but incumbent in a district he wasn't necessarily representing before.
Particularly added Dauphin County to the district.
Well, you know, he had the slimmest portion of Harrisburg City in his original district. Now he has all of Harrisburg City in this race, and all of York City in this race, and all of Carlisle. So it's just a very interesting district.
And York City.
Yeah, all of York, absolutely. So you have some, and anybody from this part of the state will tell you, it's extremely red surrounding those towns, but those towns can be awfully blue. So if George Scott, his challenger, who comes with a very interesting resume, a veteran, a pastor who in the springtime made national news for throwing a gun into a fire. So it's a very interesting race. 2 guys who I think are engaged in their pockets the right ways.
So that's the 10th district. John was talking about the 17th out in the western part of the state. This is in south central Pennsylvania, northern York, half of York, northern York,
from York City up to Harrisburg,
and Dauphin County, correct?
You're right, and so it'll be very interesting.
We have 2 minutes left. Let's quickly, I'm going to stay with you and then John weigh in.
Sure.
Satellite casinos.
Okay, satellite casinos. Well, we've talked about gaming on this show previously. That is the sort of mini casino that was approved by the legislature to provide more casinos in your neighborhoods, essentially. And next week on Wednesday, pay attention, we should see our first look at what these satellite casinos could end up looking at. The first company to get a license was Penn National. They're based in Berks County. They have a casino in Dauphin County, and they will unveil their location. So we'll see if it is something they build from scratch or if they move into an existing structure. You know, I used to live in Oklahoma. We had casinos at the end of strip malls. Is that what it's going to look like? But John, it's going to be 700.
Where's all this going?
I look forward to being beamed up to the very first satellite casino myself. Now, I mean, we've got this, Terry. We've got iGaming that's coming. You see significant pushback against online gaming. They're fearing that kids will get sucked into this somehow. You know, I wonder how many ways the state honestly can slice up this gaming dollar, and how much, and before it cannibalizes the lottery, because you're seeing complaints about that.
Oh, that's a great point
as well.
All right, I have to make an announcement here. In 2 weeks, I'll be off. Mike Straub will be hosting the show. He has done that before. John Micek, Mike Straub, thanks for coming on.
Sure.
All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.